The final cut is a masterpiece. But the first draft is a war zone. This is between the frames. The Council of Elrond is one of the most iconic scenes in The Lord of the Rings. You know the one. Elves, dwarves, and men gathered in Rivendell's sun-dappled chambers, debating the fate of the One Ring. It's tense, visually stunning, and packed with lore. But the version we all know and love almost didn't exist. Imagine this. The first, assembled edit of that scene ran for a staggering 45 minutes. That's longer than some entire TV episodes. During test screenings, audiences fidgeted, they checked their watches, and later confessed they nearly lost interest in the entire film right then and there. This wasn't just a simple pacing problem. It was a franchise-threatening bottleneck, and it was saved not by expensive reshoots or rewritten dialogue, but by an editor with a ruthless, brilliant sense of story. So what went wrong? Peter Jackson and his co-writer Fran Walsh initially aimed to be as faithful to Tolkien's original text as possible. And who could blame them? The source material is legendary. Their original script for the Council included everything. We're talking lengthy word-for-word speeches from Elrond detailing the complete history of the Rings of Power. There were extended debates between Gimli and Legolas, hashing out ancient grievances between dwarves and elves. They included detailed explanations of Saruman's betrayal and the exact movements of Sauron's forces. There was even more backstory on Boromir's journey from Gondor and the complex politics of his homeland. When all of this was filmed and put together, the scene became a marathon of talking heads. It was pure exposition. Peter Jackson himself later said, "We had fallen in love with the lore and forgot we were making a movie, not an audiobook." The feedback from that first test screening was brutal but crystal clear. The Council kills the momentum. Fix it or lose the audience. The pressure was on. This is where the magic of post-production comes in, specifically the editorial rescue led by editor John Gilbert. His intervention was a masterclass in structural and visual storytelling. First, he performed a radical trim. He cut a colossal 33 minutes of dialogue from the scene. Entire speeches were removed, and long conversations were pared down to their absolute emotional and narrative essence. He wasn't just shortening it, he was sharpening it, focusing only on what pushed the story forward. Next came a stroke of genius, flashback integration. The sequence showing Isildur cutting the ring from Sauron's hand was originally planned for a different part of the film. Gilbert took that visceral, action-packed moment and inserted it directly into Elrond's speech. Suddenly, a dry history lesson became a powerful visual gut punch. We weren't just being told about the weakness of men, we were seeing it happen. Then there was the geography problem. When characters started talking about long journeys to Mordor, Gilbert knew words alone wouldn't cut it. He cut to beautiful, stylized shots of the map of Middle-earth, with lines tracing the characters' perilous paths. This simple trick transformed verbal descriptions into clear, visual storytelling. We could see the impossible distance they had to cover, making the stakes feel much more real. But it wasn't just about cutting things out. It was about adding the right things in. Gilbert tightened the scene by adding more close-ups of the characters reacting to the debate. He focused on Frodo's growing fear, Boromir's simmering ambition, Gandalf's deep concern, and Aragorn's quiet resolve. These silent reaction shots kept the scene emotionally anchored. We felt the weight of the decision through their eyes, making the long conversation feel personal and immediate. Finally, the pacing was tied together with Howard Shore's incredible score. The music was recalibrated to build tension throughout the entire debate. It starts subtly, then swells and rises, reaching an epic crescendo at the pivotal moment when Frodo, small and seemingly insignificant, stands up and says, "I will take the ring." The combination of the tight edit, the emotional close-ups, and the soaring music is what gives that moment its legendary power. The new version clocked in at just 12 minutes. It was lean, urgent, and layered. It successfully delivered all the necessary exposition while feeling like a high-stakes thriller. John Gilbert's edit didn't just save one scene. It defined the entire trilogy, a successful approach to adapting a dense fantasy world. It created a new template, exposition as drama. The Council of Elrond became the model for how to deliver complex lore without grinding the movie to a halt. This technique was used again and again, like in Gandalf's explanation of the Balrog in Moria or the film's powerful opening prologue. It taught them to show, not just tell. This highlights the role of the unsung hero in filmmaking, the editor. Directors and actors get most of the glory, but Gilbert's work on the Council is a masterclass in narrative surgery. He took a bloated, unwieldy scene and carved it into a masterpiece of pacing and tension. The experience also proved the value of test screenings. Jackson has said the feedback was brutal, but essential. The near failure of the council scene taught the creative team a crucial lesson. Trust the audience. Ses need for momentum more than you trust their patience for lore. This became a key advantage. Think about it, other fantasy adaptations, even the Hobbit trilogy from the same creative team, often struggled with long, drawn-out exposition dumps. The Fellowship of the Ring learned this lesson early on. Never let the lore overwhelm the story. So what's the big takeaway for anyone creating anything? The principle here is simple. Cut for clarity, not for content. John Gilbert understood that the audience didn't need to know every single detail from the book. They needed to feel the stakes. They needed to understand the danger and care about the characters. So, for any creators watching, ask yourself, what's the Council of Elrond in your project? Where is that one spot where you're explaining something to death instead of engaging your audience? Sometimes, the most faithful and effective adaptation is the one that knows what to leave on the cutting room floor. What other film or show do you think was saved by a bold edit? I'd love to hear your picks in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to Between the Frames for more deep dives into the art of filmmaking.